Cancelled.
Schweezy.
This is straight from the New York Post. This is some shit I want to talk about. Irredeemable Batgirl movie gets shelved by Warner Brothers despite $70 million price tag. Source. Holy millions down the drain, Batman. The DC Comics film Batgirl will be completely shelved by Warner Brothers, a top Hollywood source told The Post. That means it won't hit theaters or streaming services. HBO Max fans will not see it. The reportedly $70 million movie, the source said the budget was actually more than $100 million, which was doing test screenings for audiences in anticipation of a late 2022 debut, would rank among the most expensive cinematic cast-offs ever. Those tests were said to be so poorly received by moviegoers that the studio decided to cut its losses and run for the sake of the brand's future. It's a DC disaster. They think an unspeakable Batgirl is going to be irredeemable, the source said. The Post has reached out to Warner Brothers for comment. It's been a months-long walk of shame for the movie Batgirl directed by Adil El Arbi. I'm not kidding this. In Bial Fala, who directed Bad Boys for Life, as this article would like to say, received not a single mention of DC's Comic-Con panel in San Diego in July. An unusual move that raised industry eyebrows. The much-publicized event, after all, it designed to boost exposure for forthcoming projects just like this one. Marvel's Comic-Con presentation, on the flip side, announced more than a dozen films in the so-called Phase 5 and 6 of the MCU to be released through fall 2025, with even more surely in the hopper. Batgirl, which stars Leslie Grace in the Heights in the title role alongside J.K. Simmons, Michael Keaton, and Brendan Fraser, has originally planned for an HBO Max release. The Puck's newsletter reported in April that WB's then chair, Tony Emmerich, was considering a theatrical run for the film. But Emmerich stepped down in June to form his own production company not long after Warner Brothers merged with Discovery, and David Zaslav became the CEO of the new entity. He replaced Emmerich and MGM's Michael De Luca, who likely had to deliver the bat news, and Pam Abdi. While the film's co-director have done some scattered interviews about casting, the studio has been mum on plans for Batgirl ever since. Shelving a multi-million-dollar effort would not be unusual for Zaslav, a ruthless cost cutter. Remember, he's the same guy who gave the $300 million streaming service CNN Plus the axe just days after its splashy launch because it didn't snare enough subscribers. The budget-conscious CEO, according to Variety, has split WB into multiple segments, including a reorganized DC-based film production group. So I'm like super interested in this. I guess HBO Max. I think HBO is fine, right? I'm not mistaken that HBO is fine, but from basically what I heard, but I did hear about like Warner Brothers, essentially being bought out by Discovery, which is so weird because when you think of Warner Brothers, like you think about like a lot of good shit that's gone on that they've made. You know, it's different from Fox. Like, you know, Fox was okay, and then you're like, but you can see why like it got bought out by Disney. Disney at least bought it out just for the Marvel stuff, because the Marvel stuff was doing so good for Disney, and Disney was like, you know, if we buy Fox, it's going to make one of our specific brands a lot of money. And then it's weird because, like, technically it's a Fox property, but Disney owns Fox, and then so when Marvel Studios uses the X-Men, is it still a Fox production? Well, that's what they always talked about with, like, Deadpool. We were like, it's not in the MCU, but it's still Marvel. I'm like, I don't know if they want to do that. But I'm just trying to think here. First of all, let's talk about Discovery Plus getting a lot of Warner Brothers content. Discovery, I think they own like TLC, which I'm a fan of, and you know, I'm gonna talk shit about them, but I generally do enjoy the content they put up there. Dr. Pimple Popper's one, which is actually a really good show, mainly because Dr. Lee. Because I actually start learning a lot of shit about dermatology, and I like watch Dr. Pimple Popper, and I'm like, okay, so Dr. Lee is like, you know, I'm gonna use this tool, this knife tool, you know. It's going to be good. With this cyst, it's probably going a lot of pressure, so we are going to have to cut it open and squeeze it a little bit before we take out the sac. I'm like, you know, Dr. Lee, I think that's a great idea. I think that's what I would have done if I were you. Like, me with no training. Because you do think, you see that shit like she does on the show, and you're like, yeah, I could, like, cut open something and then pop it, but, like, there's so much little details in that. Like, she just, like, the idea, like, she just looks at a patient and, like, yeah, that's this random-ass disease. And you're like, yeah, that's why you pay, that's why you go to people like that. Anyway, so it's weird that company, that also makes trillions of dollars off fat people a year, were able to buy Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers, who owns DC movies. Like, Warner Brothers, they still have the rights to The Dark Knight, one of the best superhero films ever made. Just one of the best movies that has ever been made. They distributed that. They have the rights to that. They got bought out by the people who produce My 600-Pound Life. That's just crazy to me. But I also am a fan of just streaming because there's too many streaming services right now. Remember CBS had one of their own specific thing, and they kind of just merged with Paramount Plus. Yeah, I like HBO Max. I think it's a really good streaming service, but I don't know if HBO Max is going away. I haven't done too much research into that. I don't know if HBO Max is going away, because HBO Max has a lot of content, but I don't know if that's because of Warner Brothers. I'm very interested in kind of like hearing more information on that. Let's get into the actual topic of this. Batgirl. How bad is this fucking movie? I want to know. Like, I can't imagine. I mean, I'm just thinking about this. This is the studio who released the Joss Whedon Justice League, and because even then, like, I liked Zack Snyder's take on the Justice League. I loved his universe. Everyone's like, you got Superman wrong, you got Batman wrong. I'm like, yeah, but those Superman and Batman films have already been made. This is one, it's somewhat realistic. Also, two, I always feel like with DC superheroes, it's more or less in a idea that the heroes are gods. And when you go to Marvel, it's like, these are ordinary people with extraordinary gifts, and they try to work with their gifts to do good things for the most part. It's different from that. The studio who took what Zack Snyder filmed, and then decided to do a million reshoots and ruin whatever the fuck he was trying to make complete garbage out of it. And I didn't hate it when I saw it in theaters, but now that I've seen the Snyder cut, I'm like, it's good. And if you're gonna watch everyone's like, Batman v Superman stuff, I'm like, watch the actual Zack Snyder cut of it, because there is technically, it's like the Ultimate Edition or some shit like that, but it's technically the Snyder cut of that movie, and it's actually pretty good, because it just cut off so much shit, because it was like this mystery of why is Bruce Wayne going after Superman, like, you know, he's obviously kind of worried about it, but then there's all these clues you keep leading to, and you realize it's Lex Luthor and stuff like that. They released, anyways, though. Let's just think about what DC has released. They released a very crumpled edit of Zack Snyder's Batman vs. Superman. They made a mockery out of Zack Snyder's Justice League and had Joss Whedon, who has done like a lot of good stuff, even though like apparently he's a bad person. He's made a lot of good stuff. And then they released Suicide Squad, which was not a comedy. And then last minute was made a comedy, and those jokes didn't fall through. Jared Leto said there's an Ayer cut that's really good. I'm interested in seeing... to be honest, though, like they say, this is the director's cut. Shouldn't the director's cut be the movie? That should be Mac. But even though I'm talking way too much about this, how bad is this fucking movie if it's so bad that they won't even release it? But they released the David Ayer's Suicide Squad. That's a question I want to have. Now I want to see this movie. I want to see how bad it is. And then I want to compare it to Morbius, because that movie was fucking awful. So awful that they had to release it in theaters twice for some fucking reason. We were like, everyone's into this movie now because of the jokes. We're like, no, that's not the reason. No, don't do that. No, don't do that. Don't ever do that. Okay. Hey there, you just checked out a highlight from Cancel Schweezy. Thank you very much. I'm glad that you learned something and that you are now a smarter individual. Just so you know, we have full episodes and other many highlights available now. Click here for the next best thing that you can go check out as well. And make sure you press that subscribe button and press that notification bell. That way you get updated anytime we make a new post or anytime that we make a new highlight or full episode. So thank you, honk if you love butt drugs, and stay awesome.